mass immigration, the French melting pot, or pressure cooker. Let's talk about France's ongoing saga with immigrants and refugees, because honestly, it's been wilder than a Parisian roundabout at rush hour. First off, France has always been a bit of a magnet for people seeking a better life. In 2023 alone, over 320,000 first-time residence permits were issued, with students leading the charge, because who wouldn't want to study in a place where cheese is practically a food group? That was followed by family reunification and economic migrants. Refugees and asylum seekers are also arriving in record numbers, with 142,500 asylum requests last year, a third of which were accepted. Afghans, Bangladeshis, and folks from Turkey and Guinea are topping the chart. Move over Eurovision. Cities like Paris have seen a sharp rise in its immigrant population, with about 40% of all immigrants in France now living in the Paris metropolitan area. This concentration has exacerbated an already severe housing crisis. The city's limited affordable housing stock is under immense pressure, leading to increased competition for apartments and higher rents. Working-class Parisians in particular are feeling squeezed out of central neighborhoods as demand surges and prices climb. Homelessness has also surged, with estimates of 330,000 homeless people nationwide, many of whom are migrants or asylum seekers, further straining social services and public spaces. The inability to provide adequate housing for asylum seekers and migrants has resulted in the proliferation of makeshift encampments in parks, under bridges, and along major boulevards. These encampments, often forcibly dismantled by police, have become a recurring feature of the urban landscape, contributing to a sense of disorder and insecurity for local residents. The presence of large numbers of people living in precarious conditions has fueled public frustration and sometimes led to tensions between newcomers and long-term Parisians. The rapid population growth in certain neighborhoods has put additional strain on schools, healthcare facilities, and welfare services. French-born citizens, especially those in working-class districts, report longer wait times for medical appointments, crowded classrooms, and increased competition for social benefits. This has led to a perception that public resources are being stretched thin, sometimes fueling resentment and social division. So yeah, living in Paris sucks big time. Deportations are up 10% from the previous year, but still not back to pre-pandemic levels. It turns out, even bureaucracy has a hard time catching up after COVID. And while the government did regularize about 34,000 undocumented workers, that's a drop in the ocean compared to the estimated 700,000 living under the radar. Safety concerns, from terror threats to pickpocket pandemonium. Let's get real about safety in France, because it's not just about locking your doors at night or avoiding dark alleys. The conversation has shifted in recent years from "is France safe?" to "how many ways can you get robbed, scammed, or caught in the middle of something you'd rather not be a part of?" Crime rates have been inching up, with the homicide rate rising from 1.2, 1 per 100,000 in 2020 to 1.5 in 2023, and a notable chunk of these linked to drug trafficking and organized crime, especially in cities like Marseille. But for most people, locals and tourists alike, the real, everyday headache isn't violent crime. It's the relentless, almost Olympic-level pickpocketing that plagues the country's most iconic spots. Pickpocketing in France, and especially Paris, is so rampant that it's basically a rite of passage for anyone who spends more than 5 minutes near the Eiffel Tower, Montmartre, or the Paris Metro. Paris consistently ranks as one of Europe's worst cities for pickpocketing, right behind Rome and Barcelona. The Eiffel Tower is notorious. Tourists queue for the elevator, snap their selfies, and voila, their wallets vanish faster than you can say baguette. The Paris Metro, especially lines serving tourist hotspots, is a pickpocket's playground. The RERB commuter train is infamous, and even locals have stories of someone's hand slipping into their bag or pocket without them noticing. It's not just a tourist problem. Locals are just as affected, especially in crowded areas, department stores, and busy markets. The French government has responded by increasing police presence in tourist zones, putting up warning signs, and even broadcasting alerts in stations and airports. But the thieves are clever, often working in organized gangs, blending in, and using distraction tactics like fake petitions, friendship bracelet scams, or overly friendly strangers who just want to practice their English. Even with more police, there always seem to be more pickpockets than uniforms, and the sheer number of incidents, hundreds of thousands of non-violent thefts reported each year, keeps everyone on edge. The impact is real. Tourists leave with a sour taste and lighter pockets, and locals grow increasingly frustrated. The constant threat of theft is changing how people move around the city, what they carry, and even where they choose to go. For a country that prides itself on its art, culture, and joie de vivre, the rise in petty crime is more than just an inconvenience. It's a blow to the French way of life. And if you're thinking, well, I'll just be careful, think again. The pickpockets are professionals, and even the most vigilant can fall victim. So whether you're a local just trying to get to work or a tourist hoping for a magical Parisian experience, the reality is, keep your hand on your wallet, your bag zipped, and your wits about you. In France today, safety isn't just about avoiding danger. It's about outsmarting the thieves who want to turn your vacation into their payday. Political unrest, vive la révolution, but with more tear gas. If you thought France's reputation for protest was just a charming bit of history, think again. The spirit of revolution is alive and well, and these days, it's not just about waving banners and singing La Marseillaise. It's about mass mobilizations, political showdowns, and, increasingly, violence in the streets. The latest wave of unrest has been fueled by deep political instability. Since the 2024 legislative elections, France has been stuck in a historic political crisis, with no single party able to secure a majority in parliament. President Macron's gamble to dissolve the National Assembly backfired spectacularly, leaving the country with a hung parliament, a revolving door of short-lived governments, and a sense that nobody is really in charge. The result? A perfect breeding ground for protest movements on both the left and right, all eager to take their grievances to the streets. And take to the streets they do. In 2025, France has seen a surge of large-scale demonstrations, many of which have turned violent. May Day rallies, traditionally a showcase for workers' rights, drew over 300,000 people nationwide this year. While most protests were peaceful, Paris saw ugly scenes as violence broke out against socialist MPs and police, with clashes, property damage, and injuries marring the event. Journalists covering these rallies have also been targeted, facing physical assaults and arbitrary confiscation of protective gear by police, leading media freedom groups to condemn the authorities' heavy-handed tactics. But it's not just the left making noise. The far right, led by the National Rally, has mobilized its own supporters in response to the high-profile conviction and political ban of Marine Le Pen. In April 2025, thousands gathered in central Paris to protest what they called a nuclear bomb aimed at stopping their party from gaining power. These rallies, though billed as peaceful and democratic, have been tense, with counter-protests from leftist groups and a heavy police presence to prevent escalation. The political temperature is so high that even international figures, from Donald Trump to Viktor Orban, are weighing in, warning of threats to democracy and stoking further division. University students, too, are in the fray. In April, student protests over budget cuts in Paris escalated after riot police moved in with shields, batons, and tear gas. What started as a peaceful march quickly turned chaotic, with students lighting effigies and smoke bombs, and police charging the crowd, resulting in injuries and widespread condemnation of police brutality. All of this unrest is happening against a backdrop of economic anxiety and government austerity, with unemployment rising, national debt ballooning, and public frustration over reforms like pension changes. The sense of crisis is palpable. Extremist forces on both sides are gaining ground, and the government's ability to respond is hamstrung by political gridlock. So if you're living in France right now, you're not just dodging protesters, you're dodging riot police, tear gas, and the occasional flying cobblestone. The country's famed revolutionary spirit is alive, but these days, it comes with a side of chaos and a real risk of being caught in the crossfire. Welcome to France, where political passion is a contact sport, and every week brings a new episode of Who's Protesting Now? Strikes, the national pastime. If you thought baseball was America's pastime, here in France it's the strike. Trains, buses, teachers, garbage collectors, air traffic controllers. If it moves, teaches, or picks up trash, it's probably on strike. Planning to get to work? Not today. Want to visit the Louvre? Sorry, the staff is protesting pension reforms. Need to catch a train? Hope you like walking. The French are passionate about their right to protest, and they exercise it with Olympic-level dedication. It's almost impressive, really. But for the average resident, it means you're constantly recalculating your route to work, school, or the grocery store. And sometimes you just give up and stay home. At least you'll save on transportation costs. If only you could afford the rent. Click the like button, subscribe, and stay awesome.